Dave Landry here from DaveLandry.com, and this is Trading Simplified, episode 38. So, what do we talk about? Well, I thought it'd be important to talk about my indicators in action. I've shown you these indicators with the free plug-in over the past several weeks on and off, but I think it's more important to show you how to get them set up, how to get them working, and some ideas for how to use them on real charts. Before we do all that, just a quick FYI, I do take requests. I'm a little behind in requests, but keep them coming. And I also do a much more open show on Thursdays. And you can come to those shows and ask questions live. And you could also submit them ahead of time, and I'll be happy to cover them either in upcoming shows here or in those shows. And that's the weekend charts, and that can be found at DaveLandry.com on Thursdays. If you need to reach me, DaveLandry.com/contact and DaveLandry.com/StockCharts if you're interested in the slides from this presentation, all the prior presentations, and enough information he tried to say to keep you busy for a long time. So let's talk about my stick with the trend indicators. Now, a while back, someone said, now since we went away from the live shows due to COVID-19, somebody had complained that the information was no longer relevant. Well, what I like to do is put out evergreen content just in case I get hit by a beer truck. You can use the same techniques tomorrow, the next day, and hopefully for a long time. One of my newer clients came to me through a third party, and when he was doing his due diligence, he did some research and poking around the net. He found some posts that I had put in the forum 20-something years ago, and I was saying the same exact thing about bow ties and Landry light, although we called it daylight back then. But the idea is, or the point I'm trying to get to, is that nothing has really changed a whole lot with my methodology. There's a few tweaks here and there's some new research that occasionally comes along, which I'll show you some of which in a few minutes. But for the most part, it's the same thing I've been doing for 20-something years. So it's like the old saying, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man how to fish and he'll sit in a boat and drink beer all day. All kidding aside, you should be able to use this in real markets. As long as things are conceptually correct, you should be able to use them for a long time. You might just have to add a few tweaks to them here and there. Now, as I've said before, when I come up with something such as an indicator, it's not really an indicator so much as an illustrator. In fact, the indicators I'm going to use today that I'm going to show you that are part of the plugin are very simple, and it just helps to illustrate what's already in the chart. Now, people sometimes need a little help in qualifying and quantifying things, and that's why I've come up with a few little systems such as Landry Light Pullback. So let's take a look at that. But before we do that, let's get the plugin loaded. So if you go to this URL here and you click on Trading Simplified, and for a price of $0, you could actually install it. Just click install. I've already installed it, so it's there. And if you don't want to have to go to that URL, just right here, click a little plugin, and then you can see right here, Dave Landry, Trading Simplified. Click on that, and it'll install it. So they're good to go there. Now, let's take a look at Landry Light Pullbacks. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to start with a blank chart, and I'm going to go ahead and add in some of my indicators to this. And if you come down to the bottom of the indicators, and I'm trying to get them to put them on top, and they've taken quite a few suggestions from me, and they're working on quite a few of these things. So basically they told me just hang off, hold off for a little while, and we're going to get to those things. So I'm working actively with the program to try to make it better and better, at least for my needs, which I think would help you too. And the powers that be over at StockCharts are doing the same thing. So if we go to Landry Light, we'll click on this right here, and I'm going to set it for 30 days, and I'm going to change this to exponential, and I'll explain that in just one second. And we're going to go ahead and add an exponential moving average into the charts up here. And by the way, after you do all this, you could save these by clicking the Save button up here. You can save the particular chart, or you could actually save your style by clicking right there. Now, the goal of today's lesson is not so much to teach you how to use ACP, but to show you how I use my indicators in ACP. So let's grab a 30 period moving average. We'll just click on this, moving average exponential. We'll go 30 periods. And I like a nice thick orange for my 30-day EMA. And we'll get that updated and we'll make it nice and thick. Now, Landry Light is simply the lows are greater than the moving average. And that's illustrated. And again, I see things more as an illustrator than an indicator. But that's illustrated down here. So as long as this is green, you're above the 30-day EMA. Or more specifically, you have Landry Light. Again, meaning the lows are greater than the moving average. So let's talk about Landry Light pullbacks. Let's take a look at OCFT. We are currently long this particular stock. And again, most of the time I use a blank chart and then I'll put indicators on the chart afterwards. And the only indicators I really use are a percent from closing high indicator, which we'll cover in just a few minutes when we talk about market timing, and the Landry Light and proper order. And we'll get to those in just 1 second. So for this particular pattern, what we're looking for is trend as defined by days of daylight. And then we're looking for a pullback to the 30-day EMA. About 20 years ago, actually it was 25 years ago. Jeez, I'm getting old. That's scary. I did an article for Stocks and Commodities magazine called the 220 EMA Breakout System. And right around that time, I had fallen in love with the 20-day EMA. And it seems like lately, I've been kind of falling in love with this 30-day EMA. I know you're probably thinking, I want to party with this guy. But basically, what we're looking for is trend as defined by Landry Light, okay? Meaning that the lows, again, are greater than the 30-day EMA. And then we're looking for a pullback to that, and then looking to enter as a trend resumes. If memory serves, we got into about 14 on this particular stock. We took profits somewhere in here, and so far, we're trailing a stop higher. So let me draw that in for you so you can see what we're doing here. Now, again, I don't actually trade directly off of Landry Light pullbacks. What I do is I'll just go in and kind of eyeball the pullback. But I've found that if I could somehow quantify things a little bit, it seems to help people to see what's happening. And if you're newer to trading, it might be a good idea to come in and then use something like this, like Landry Light pullbacks, to help show you where to get into charts. So as you can see, this particular stock was in a downtrend for the most part. This was an IPO, and I do love IPOs. You can see during a downtrend when the highs are less than the moving average, you have downside Landry Light, and that's illustrated down here by the red. When it intersects the moving average, you no longer have Landry Light. And then when the price gets above the moving average, meaning the lows are greater than the moving average, notice all this space in here, you get upside Landry Light. Now keep in mind, this does not count magnitude or measured magnitude. This is just the number of days of Landry Light. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And if you count the bars in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then you can see here we intersect and we go back to 0 and then start all over again. Now, one thing I found interesting, in my third book, I wrote about Landry Light pullbacks, and I think I called them daylight pullbacks because it wasn't called Landry Light then. And I was using the 20-day EMA, which would probably be up here a little bit. I do like somewhat deeper pullbacks, but sometimes you don't get a pullback deep enough to the moving average. So if you're newer to trading and trend trading and you want to trade something like pullbacks, I think that if you went with something like Landry Light pullbacks, I think you would do pretty good. Now, I'm going to elaborate on this in just 1 second, but everything does work better with trend. Now, let's take a look at some of the other stuff that I'm doing with my plugin. So we'll go over here. Let's go to ACP, and then let's put in the... So let's go back to ACP and look at some of the other indicators. And by the way, I just learned myself how to save some of these charts and templates, and I'm hoping, and I'll talk to Grayson and some others and see if it's possible. But once I get the chart set up like I like them, I'm hoping that I'll be able to share that style with you, so you don't have to go through all the trouble plotting everything. But if you just come down here and you click on bow ties, then it's going to plot the 20 EMA, the 30 EMA, and then the 10 simple EMA. And then what I'm going to add to that is, if you come down here to the indicators, I'm going to add in proper order. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get rid of the Landry light for now. We'll just talk about the bow ties, proper order. So when a market's kind of chopping around like it was back here, notice it goes from yellow to green to yellow, and then sometimes red, meaning that the bow tie moving averages are flipping back and forth. When a market's doing that, you want to stay out of the way. But when a market is trending nicely, now when a market is trending nicely, as evidenced by the moving averages, 10 greater than 20 and 20 greater than 30, this turns green down here, and then this, like the Landry light, just counts the number of days. So if you see a market like this, you know that it's been in a trend for a long, long time, and it looks pretty good as far as the uptrend is concerned. So let's take a look at the TFM 10% system. So this is the TFM 10% system, and we're using a 10% line and a 50-day simple moving average. We use a simple moving average for this. This is a weekly chart, and down here, this is a percentage away from the 50-week closing high. Now, I will talk to the programmers. 10% is a good number for the S&P 500, but 10% might be way too small for something like a biotech or some of these crazy stocks that we've been trading lately, which can move 10% in 5 minutes. By the way, speaking of intraday charts, everything I'm showing you here does work on different time frames. And one thing I want to point out is, if we take a look at, let's say, the bow tie moving averages on a 5-minute S&P chart, for instance, you can see that proper order will help to keep you on the right side of the trend. So notice this day here, we had proper order to the upside for all the morning, and then in the afternoon, we had proper order to the downside for all afternoon. Now, keep in mind that everything works better with trend. So if we take a look at the overall market and we take a look at this slide that we went into, and again, let's go back and use our 30-day exponential moving average. Notice we have downside Landry light back in February, and that Landry light continued for a long time, and you can see that's illustrated down here. Now, it did take a little while for this to turn green, but that's okay. Trend following, you're going to be a little late to the game, because in order to follow a trend, you must first have a trend to follow. But notice that it does turn green, and for the most part, it stayed green, except for a couple little kisses of that moving average, as we talked about earlier, which can possibly be a buying opportunity, provided it resumes its uptrend from that. But it stayed green for a long time, and obviously, we're still green now, and we have been for quite a while. Proper order of the moving averages would do something very similar. And you can see here, we have the bow tie moving averages, and I left the Landry light in. But you can see that green is good, and Tarzan speak, green good. And when these moving averages cross over, that's not a good thing. We also had a bow tie along with a first thrust setup right here. This was a sell signal here. Now, as I've said in prior shows, this was kind of sloppy. I wouldn't rush out and call that a buy signal. But if you were watching the proper order, you could say that, okay, well, this is not good, or Tarzan speak bad. And then this is choppy, okay? And then we turn green again, and we've been green for a long time. Notice that the 10 is greater than the 20, and the 20 is greater than 30. These are exponential moving averages, and this one is a simple moving average. So if we get back to the live charts, and we put in proper order of the moving averages, and let's go ahead and also add in Landry light. We're going to make that 30 periods because that's what I like right now. And we're going to put in the EMA for that. The reference level just tells you how many days it has been in that mode. And sometimes you could actually use this to help not necessarily time the market, but to know when a market might be a little bit extended. And you might want to honor your stops when that begins to occur. So if we take a look at, let's say, a 5 minute, and let's take a look at the spiders for this. And as I said a minute ago, everything works better with trend. So you can see that we haven't had a whole lot of green, and this is July 21st. We're looking at this chart, and let's go back in time and take a look at what happened. Well, yesterday obviously was a really good trend day, and the market had noticed that it stayed green for almost the entire day. This is the proper order, meaning that the 10 is greater than 20 and 20 is greater than 30 moving averages. And then also notice that we had Landry light for the entire day. Now, just as it could help you to get into trending markets, it could also help you to get out of choppy markets. If we go back a few days, the trading was abysmal. It was up and down and up and down. Let me see if I can find a really good day for you in here. So if we go back a few days in time, you'll find, especially in something like the S&P 500, that there are some choppy days here and there where it flips back and forth between green and red. And those days aren't really great for trading. You can see we bounced around, up and down around the moving average on that particular day there, gapped higher, then just kind of traded sideways and bounced around the moving averages. So I would encourage you to play with these things. It's really cool. I know I'm a nerd, but I just think they're really awesome, and you could pick up a lot of things from this. And I've already started some new research from the process. Now, keep in mind that, as I said earlier, everything works better with trend, but let's take a look at, like, let's say you want to trade Bitcoin, which I do trade Bitcoin on occasion. And let's take a look at a daily bar chart here. So just something simple like the Landry light, which we have down here, and the proper order of the moving averages we have here can help to keep you on the right side of the market or possibly out of the market at times. So we take a look at Bitcoin now. It's improving a little bit in here, but for the most part, it's been pretty choppy, trading on both sides up and down of the market. So you might want to wait until you have a nice solid uptrend before looking to trade. Now, the slide we went into, like the overall market, you can see once this slide began to happen, this turned yellow in here, the proper order of the moving averages, and we began to get Landry light to the downside. And notice right here, one little kiss to the moving average right here before this big slide took off. Now, use these as you see fit. I just wanted to kind of throw a couple of markets out there just so you can check it out. Maybe gold would be another good market to take a look at. Now, keep in mind that something like Bitcoin and gold are pretty efficient markets, but they can occasionally trend nicely. And notice the nice green trend that gold's been in, had a few little dips below its 30-day EMA, and you can see that the proper order changed for a while here when it got choppy, and then it went back to uptrend proper order. And notice the green down here. So again, now keep in mind, everything works better with trend, but as you can see, these indicators can help to keep you on the right side of the market and possibly keep you out of the market when it's chopping around. So use them as you see fit. I think a great use might be ETFs, and that's something that I've begun to experiment with. And I talked with StockCharts this morning, and they're going to add a feature eventually which will allow us to go through a list of ETFs. So once they do that, I'll flip through a list of ETFs and show you how some of these indicators might be useful for possible longer-term portfolio allocation. Now, one thing that comes out of teaching and interacting with other traders and creating indicators and talking with you people is things such as research, and that's kind of exciting. And one of the guys in my Facebook group, which, by the way, we have a great group of traders. You do have to be a gold member of DaveLandry.com, but the group is free, but that's the only qualifying thing there is to get in. But he pointed out that a lot of times you have these stocks that just take off and go straight up, double, triple, maybe even quadruple, and then they come falling back to earth, and then they take off again and go back to their old highs. And I've dubbed this return to paradise. And this is something that I've just begun to watch. Unfortunately, the first one that I was watching took off without me. So I think there might be something here, but I think you also might want to flesh it out a little bit more. You might want to be careful because this could just be a church of what's happening now type of situation. So this isn't necessarily going to become part of my core methodology just yet, but it is some new research, and it's kind of fun to look at these different things. I know you still want to party with me, right? But anyway, for Return to Paradise is what I dubbed it. This was by John R., and he's in my trading group. I said, what would happen if a stock had a major rally of, say, 2 times or 3 times or more, and then it came back to the 30 EMA, and then it has a wide range bar 7, meaning that the bar is as wide as it has been for the past 7 bars, and also closes above the open. So in addition to that, it also has Landry light, which suggests that it's beginning to break away from its moving average. And I thought it'd be kind of funny and just kind of fun to watch. It's like the stock must also do something dumb, because right now volatility is whack and people are chasing all these crazy stocks. Well, I kind of feel like as a trend follower, if you can't beat them, join them, right? And it just seems like the dumber the company, the better this pattern and other patterns work. And I just made a joke and said, well, it's got to do something stupid like holograms or unmanned aerial vehicles for the agricultural industry, which is what UAV does, whatever that is, UAVS. So let's take a look at this stock. So if we take a look at UAVS, notice that it traded above its 30 EMA and just blasted higher, and then came back in and intersected with its moving average. So we went from uptrend Landry light down to no Landry light, and even negative for a little while. Now, what I was thinking was, if you had a close above the open on a wide range bar, notice these bars are pretty thin in here, or pretty narrow, I should say. Notice the close is above the open. What would happen if you entered on the close when you had one of these crazy stocks taking off again? Now, keep in mind, this is brand new research, and these are the kind of things that we kind of flesh out a little bit in the Facebook group. And if you come to the Weekend Charts on Thursday, sometimes I'll talk about things like this to see whether or not there's something valid there. But anyway, this is just one little way to use something like this, which I think could possibly show some promise, at least in this particular market. Now, again, this could just be a church of what's happening now type of thing, but as long as it continues to happen, then I think it might be worth trading. Linda Rasky and Trading Sardines, and if you haven't read it, I recommend you do. I helped Linda in the process of publishing that. I helped edit it for her, and it's a fantastic book, and I've read it probably 3 times at least so far. But one of the things she said, and I've experienced this quite a bit lately, is right when you feel like you found the key to the market, they change the lock. So this might be one of those patterns that could be the key to the market, but I would just urge you, caution you that they might change the lock soon. Now, getting back to, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, for now, I would stick with things like the bow ties and the Landry light pullback and Landry light and things like that. And then this newer research, let's just keep an eye on these stocks and see if it works, and we'll decide whether or not we should make this part of the core methodology. But I like to throw things out as I create them, or as I, in this case, as I discover them. And I just sort of fleshed out one of the patterns that one of the members of my group has been trading in this particular case. So anyway, that's the indicators. Let me just show you one more thing real quick. If we get back to the S&P 500 and we go down to the indicators, and we'll take off the proper order here. And down here, there's one more indicator we haven't talked about yet, And by the way, if you want to, if you just put in bow ties right here, it'll plot the bow tie moving averages for you. So if we get rid of this up here, and then you just click on Landry Bow Tie, bam, right there. Those are your bow tie moving averages. I prefer different colors in here, so I need to talk to the programmers and see if we can get those changed. But that's the bow tie moving averages. The one indicator we haven't talked about yet is Landry volatility. Now, there's nothing magical about this Landry volatility indicator. It's simply the 50-day historical volatility. And that's something that I use in my trading to give me a feel for things. So the overall market right now is at 23. As you can see down here, bases of spiders. So if I'm trading a stock with an HV of 100, I know that it's 4 times greater volatility plus than the overall market. So that helps to get me to gauge how volatile a stock is. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that a market tends to bottom on high volatility. Now, you can't time off of volatility, and if you go in and watch some of my weekend charts presentations on YouTube, you'll notice that I did go down a bit of a volatility rabbit hole, or a rabbit hole in volatility, and you can get kind of lost in volatility. But it's useful. It's definitely useful when you're comparing stocks to the overall market. It's definitely useful to know when you might be near a bottom. But again, you can't really time off of it. But I don't ever remember seeing the S&P at a volatility of 70. That's just really extreme. So when you see such extreme volatility, you need to be concerned that the market might be hitting a top. And conversely, when the market gets very, very, very low volatility, as it just sort of grinds higher and higher and higher, you might just want to be a little cautious and not kind of buy into the permanent income hypothesis that the market will just go up forever. So that's another little thing you could use in here, volatility. Volatility, again, could be a bit of a rabbit hole. If you want to learn a lot more about volatility, I have plenty of presentations on that on my website and on YouTube. So once again, if you have any follow-up questions, you can reach me at davelandry.com/contact. If you want the slides from this presentation and all the other prior presentations, which include the systems and the setups, go to davelandry.com/StockCharts. I want to thank everybody for watching, and may the trend be with you.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.